Yeah, I took the stairs. So I had yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty busy.
Everybody set?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, May 31st, 5 o'clock p.m.
You have mail.
And somebody has
All right.
mail. Before we get the TDA meeting started, if we would please just raise and face the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. The primary purpose of this meeting is, of course, public comment. Before we get into that, we have a couple of things. I do have a sign-in sheet that was collected at 5 minutes till the meeting started, and there's 7 signatures on that signed up for public comment. If you didn't get a chance or didn't sign a sheet when you came in and you'd like to speak this evening, we put the sign-up sheet back outside. If anyone wants to go and sign up, then we'll just take these comments in the order in which they were received here. If you're just here to listen and wouldn't like to comment, then you don't have to necessarily sign the sheet. You can just be present. With that being said, before we get started on that portion of the agenda, I do have for the TDA members a couple of changes I'd like to make the agenda. I need to add a couple of things on that, and I'd like to make a motion to do that. The first of which, if we could add number 4 on the agenda, I'm going to suggest that we move into a closed session to discuss contractual and legislative matters, which would be House Bill 1075, and then there's a contractual matter regarding the Swain County Recreation Department pool. And those will be items number 4 and 5 on the agenda. I'll make a motion that we add those. Second by Ron. All in favor?
Who made the motion?
I made the motion. Ron second. And unanimous. All right. With that being said, the first section of the meeting tonight, we're going to ask our landscape architect, Sitework Studios. They're here with us, and they're going to provide us a brief presentation on the Four Corners landscaping project, and after which time we'll open the floor to public comment, and we'll take notes while we do that and then respond accordingly when we do that. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to these guys and let them do their thing.
Sure. I'd like to introduce you to Matt Sprouse and Gabriel Delerme from Sitework Studio in Asheville. So they're going to present to us the project that the TDA has seen, but maybe a lot of the public has not yet seen. So, Matt?
Make sure this is working. I know I'm trying to record as well. Thanks, Mary Ann, and to the TDA board. Again, my name's Matt Sprouse. This is Gabriel Delerme. We're with Sitework Studios in Asheville, North Carolina. We're landscape architects. And as landscape architects, we see a lot of different kinds of public projects, large and small. And for us, these kind of projects are very special. We really enjoy working in the public realm, thinking about, dreaming about, and ultimately seeing spaces built that become part of the community. So this has been a really big honor for us to work in Bryson City. We work all over Western North Carolina. We work in Eastern Tennessee. We're sort of a regional firm. But when we can work in our own backyard, it means a lot to us. So I appreciate everyone being here. We're here tonight primarily to listen. We're going to talk through our design process a little bit about how we got to this design solution, and show you some of those ideas. And then we're going to play a quick video or a computer rendering that we put together so that you can kind of see it more in 3D. And then our job after that really is to listen. And we've got a really great showing tonight. And so I know a lot of people have a lot of thoughts, and we are here to take notes. I know the board is here to take notes. And after tonight, we will take everyone's comments and thoughts. We have kind of a planning session that we'll go back to our office and put together kind of a final presentation, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about the final designs. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about our process. We don't just pull designs out of the air. We are really trying to come up with designs, especially in public spaces like this, that have a lot of different functions. And if you think about the way people use public spaces, they have to have multifunction. They have to be used for small gatherings, large gatherings, memorials, people just visiting town, needing a place to sit down, someone that might need to sit down with their lunch who's working next door. They need to work in the spring, in the summer, in the fall. And so we have to kind of take all of these things into consideration. Things like maintenance. How is this space going to be maintained? Is it going to be mowed and trimmed? Does it need a gardening element to it? There's a lot of factors that go into sort of planning these outdoor spaces. And it's a lot like designing a piece of architecture. How are you going to use the building? We come at it from how are we going to use the site. And when we do that, our firm's position on that is try to come up with something that in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we don't look back and go, man, that was designed in 2020. We really want these spaces to have a long life, be timeless as much as possible. And part of that is selecting timeless materials, things that we know will last a really long time. The difference between using stone versus a landscape timber for a wall. One will last 15 years, one will last 150 years. So when we're working in the public realm, we are really thinking about a lot of those kind of timeless elements and things that when we're not here anymore, someone 50 years from now is maintaining this and still able to handle that space, and it's grown into itself. So a little bit about our process for the Four Corners sites. The first thing we did is sort of a fact-finding. We had to pull together some base maps, surveys, base maps, just get together something we could work from that is our base. And to do that, we pulled together some state information, some DOT information that the county could give us, and also we came out and did some measurements and some photography and just tried to get as clear a picture as we possibly could as the existing condition that we have. So what you see up here on the screen is just what we've sort of named these four corners, that I'll reference these names as we go through the designs. We had to name them something so that we could keep them in order. The first, historic courthouse, that's pretty self-explanatory. The second corner, going counterclockwise, the second corner, we just called it the Bryson City Outdoors corner because that was the most adjacent business. The third was the Woodland Garden, kind of self-explanatory, it's the most shaded area. And then the fourth one was, we called it the Fly Fishing Museum corner because that was the closest, we know there's a private residence behind it, but that was the closest sort of public building we wanted to associate with it. And then we go through a site analysis looking at what the opportunities are and what the constraints are of the site. And this is just an example of that in this, on this corner, on the historic courthouse corner. We look at, all right, what are the opportunities here? Well, we have this amazing historic courthouse as the backdrop. We want to make sure that we honor that and we really kind of frame that. We have an existing lawn that we know is used for so many different functions. We want to maintain a lawn space that can be used for a lot of different functions, from just the day-to-day to the Christmas tree festival, to memorial services, things like that. So making sure that we have that multifunction lawn component. The Veterans Memorial is center of this space, and we did talk a lot with the TDA. We talked with, the TDA talked with some of the Veterans Associations. We even talked about maybe moving it, and the consensus was it stays right here. And so making it still the centerpiece of this lawn was really important. And then also trying to come up with a way to have this be kind of the welcome mat. when people come to the courthouse corner, having a space that draws you into that space. So having that sort of more welcoming front entrance, and then more pedestrian space. So right now, they're pretty narrow sidewalks, 4 feet wide, trying to get that to where people can walk side by side, 6, 8 feet, 10 feet, something that's going to function more like an urban space. Now, we also look at the constraints. Lack of shade, that's a consideration here. And there's some competing factors for that. You know, trees are going to block the courthouse, they're going to block the memorial, but how do we handle having some shade in this space? The flagpole, in this condition, the flagpole and the memorial statue were kind of separated from the pedestrian space, and how do we kind of include all that together and make that function as a whole? And then I think the biggest constraint we see is this is a really busy corner. There's no doubt, you know, people are turning this corner pretty quickly. This whole intersection, this DOT intersection, who's, you know, just one of our stakeholders here, they kind of control that traffic, that intersection. So how do we handle the transportation component of this and keep it safe for motorists, but more importantly, keep it safe for pedestrians? So that's kind of how our process goes. And we put together a graphic, and you see that there on the top left, sort of getting a little bit more detail of what's there, and, you know, having these drawings that are to scale help us to then draw to scale the solutions and the designs. So moving on, Bryson City Outdoors Corner. Well, what's important here? It's the heaviest pedestrian traffic of all 4 of them. A lot of cut-through traffic's going, a lot of pedestrian cut-through traffic's happening right there. We have a direct connection here from Main Street, from Bryson City Outdoors to Everett Street. And that is that cut-through, and people are doing that all day long. They're not going around that corner as much as they are that cut-through. There's some existing mature trees on that site. Those are important. Those give us shade. That's an opportunity we want to maintain. And then the trout statue. The trout statue, you know, there's some wonderful art pieces throughout downtown. This is something that we want to enhance. We want to celebrate. There he is down there in the bottom right-hand corner. You know, that's the kind of thing that brings that sense of place to this corner. So what are our constraints here? Well, the trees, though they're a plus, they do limit the use here. There's some screening that really needs to happen on the back corner of this property. You can see that green dashed line back there between the outdoors, and then there's some existing private patios back there. So how do you separate that public and private space? And then again, transportation. How do we keep the cars and the pedestrians separate and safe, and keep visibility high so that there aren't accidents between pedestrians and vehicles, or any of them, vehicles and vehicles. But for the most part, keeping our pedestrians safe. The Woodland Garden, you know, from an opportunity standpoint, this is our shadiest, coolest spot. And we really want to celebrate that. We want to enhance that. There are some parts in here, though they were well loved, some of these elements are starting to wear out, including the water feature. And that's a decision we have to make, is how do we handle this water feature? Water features don't have a long life. They tend to leak pretty quickly. Someone starts to turn them off, then they're not turned on again, and maintenance is an issue. So just keeping that in mind is, how are we going to handle this water feature that's here? There is an abundance of landscape in here. And so thinking about how we're going to maintain or not maintain some of the existing landscape. We know that the tree canopy is really important here. We know people come in here and they have their lunch. They come in here for a little bit of quiet. So we want to keep that and enhance that. The constraints, and I talked about the water feature, there's some other issues in here. There's some limited space for improvement because of all of these trees and some of these other programmed elements that are in here. And this is really the only site that has an elevation change. It's slight, but we do have a little bit of consideration in how we keep this ADA compliant with that elevation change that happens from the street up into this back corner. And lastly, the Fly Fishing Museum corner. This one, there are some trees here that we want to maintain or think about. There's some existing open space opportunities here. We want to keep that cohesive four-corner feel, but really this one is our most challenging because it's so small. And we have to think about this historic residence that's behind it. We have limited space to do any kind of improvements. And screening and keeping that space public and private from that residence is probably our biggest challenge. So it jumps quickly from existing conditions to design. But in that interim process for us, and working with the TDA and us in the office, thinking about how we can come up with solutions for these four corners that use materials that can be repeated so that we're not getting too finely grained, spaces that can function on multiple levels, and also have a unique quality in each four corner. So this is an overview of all four corners. Top right is the historic courthouse corner. And you can see we've really opened that up. Right now it's the memorial with a fence around it and a small sidewalk that goes in. And what we want to do is open that up and celebrate that and have a memorial as the centerpiece, move the flagpole up towards the front so that anchors that front plaza. And you can kind of see there in the gray that we've really made it much more of a plaza. And then we have this lawn panel that happens on both sides of that kind of frame the view from the corner looking towards the courthouse. And there's a close-up of that. And these images, I'd like to kind of give a little explanation. When we haven't built project yet, we always look for images that have a similar either feel or the materials are similar, or sort of connote what we're trying to portray here. And the biggest material change here is what we have recommended is coming in with a very timeless, solid material such as stone to define some of these edges. Those edges can be used for seating. It's used for a little bit of grade change that happens there between the lawn and the sidewalk. And it also divides the spaces up just a little bit so that you can have some smaller conversations happening, or some spaces that you can open it up and have the Christmas tree festival and have lots of things happening in that space. But these are our proposal is these are granite cut blocks. And you can see a few examples of what that might feel like. There's one later on in the slideshow that's more close up. But these are meant to be benches. They're meant to have a little bit of a timeless kind of stone quality, mimicking the stone in our mountains. But we also want this to be the most functional space, and a space that can be used on a lot of different levels. Moving over to the Bryson City Outdoor space, this one starts to close in a little bit more. It's not as open, it's not as multifunctional. We still have that path that cuts through from Bryson City Outdoors over towards the Cottage Craftsman, but we've broken that path up a little bit. We're using those granite blocks, those granite benches again, to sort of define that space, to create some berms, some landscape berms. You can kind of see these photos here that give that intention, what that might look like. Keeping that big evergreen tree there in the corner, and then just making a little bit more of an informal path behind it and creating a nice screen between this public space and the private buildings behind it. I also want to talk a little about plant material. When we think about plants and the kind of plants we want to specify on projects like this, for us, we live in one of the most beautiful places, really in the world. I mean, certainly in the U.S. Our plant palette here is like no other place on earth. And that's why we feel really passionate about using as many native plants to western North Carolina as we can. Tree canopies down to ground covers. And we feel no differently here. I think Bryson City is the gateway to the Smokies. We need to celebrate that. We need to talk about those plants that can be part of our urban landscape, but also are part of those mountain landscapes. So we are really leaning heavy towards our native plants as we look at the plant palette for this project. In the woodland garden, we feel like this is probably our quietest space and a space that we can really start to look at some finer details. So in here, we see a lot more natural boulders, a lot more of a natural landscape like these images that you see here in the corner. We see a lot of opportunities for picnic tables, benches, places for people to spend a lot more time in the shade. We see a really great opportunity in this back corner here, and you see this kind of brown circle, having some kind of a small platform, stage, I even worry about saying the word stage, but a small platform where someone could set up a chair and a guitar and an amp and just have a busker there for the day. Or set up some rocking chairs there so people can come in there and sit, or a picnic table, but something that just has a little bit different of a material, a little bit more of a residential feel, not as much of an urban feel. And then changing out some of the path materials and going from concrete into something more like a stone or a gravel, something that has a little bit more of a garden feel to it. Something that'll slow you down, help you enjoy the shade and quiet. And then moving on to the fourth corner, the fly fishing corner. This is the one I mentioned, it's probably the most challenging. How do we tie it together with all these other three and still make them feel like they're part of this whole? And for us, that is going to be using the same palette of materials, native plants, boulders, some burned landscape, and possibly some of the granite blocks to really anchor this thing in and give a person a reason to come through this corner, pause, and also tie it all together for the board. This is the image here. The second image down is really a lot more what we're thinking of these cut granite blocks that can be benches. They can be, if you had a festival, there could be places where people could put their, what they're selling. There's a high functionality for these things, and they're timeless. They'll last for 150 years. And they can come in tons of different colors. Not just gray granite, but most of the granite in the eastern U.S. comes out of two places. One is here in North Carolina. So picking the right color for that, blending in with Bryson City is really important. So that gives you an overview of kind of our design intent for the spaces. I think in plan view, sometimes it's really hard to see and understand, which is why we've started to put together these 3D fly-through renderings. Even though they're a little bit kind of computery, I think it's good to watch. So I'm going to play that now, and we can play it through a couple of times. And then I want to open it up to the room, and we'll listen. So we're flying into what is the woodland garden. And you can see there's sort of different materials with the pathways, kind of keeping the big shade trees and having areas for people to sit, read in the shade, kind of enjoy the quiet. You can see there in the background that sort of small little stage we were talking about. flying over to the outdoor center. And you can kind of see into the space from where you would be standing in the street on the sidewalk, and how those real angular blocks kind of define the space, giving little alcoves for people who would sit down, get out of the way of people kind of cutting through, and then that back path there, having room for just a little bit more informality, little kids running around. And now we'll cross the street and go over to the courthouse. So there on the right, in front of the flagpole, you see some bollards, what we call bollards, which are just sort of, they're just a safety measure. That's just a small, decorative steel or iron bollard that, since we are kind of flush there on that corner, just keeping the pedestrians safe from traffic. A small landscape bed, we see there's some sign opportunities that are there. You see the walking sign, and what's under it is much more like a historic courthouse sign, or it could be a different kind of sign or not there at all. And then you can start to see how we're framing the courthouse with that wider sidewalk with the memorial in the middle, giving some opportunities for people to sit. There's a space there towards the back that has an opportunity for a mobile stage if there's another venue going on there, just a small little gathering. Enough lawn space there for the Christmas tree event, and then really just opening up that space. And there you can kind of see how all the pieces kind of tie together. I'm going to play through it one more time and not pause. So thanks for giving us a chance to come and present our concepts to you, our thoughts, and I know you've got some procedural business to talk about, and then we're here to listen, and really appreciate you being here.
You make sure you go over that little speech you gave last week.
All right, before we turn it over to public comment, on behalf of the entire TDA, I'd like to welcome everyone for coming. This is fantastic. It's not a lot of our initiatives and things that we tackle that draw this much attention from the public, and just being here tonight shows that you truly care about the things that are going on in regards to the square and the projects that we have going on. So we'd like to thank you again for doing that. It's very important to us. I wish we had this kind of attendance at every meeting. That would be great. Just some housekeeping items before we get started too. First of all, for the record, this meeting has been published in the local newspaper. posted in the lobby at the county building, as well as being emailed to what we call a sunshine list, which is a few key stakeholders that do a good job of disseminating meeting information for and on behalf of TDA. So we'll be kicking off public comment in just a second in the order in which people signed up. Everyone will be provided 3 minutes. Eugene will be keeping time for us on that. If you need an extension of time, we can do that if necessary, but please, with this amount of people, let's try and stick to as close to that as possible. Please address the entire committee when you're up speaking. Try not to address individuals on the board and address the entire committee. Remain polite, professional conduct standards during public comment, and that's for the committee as well as anyone making public comment. Any deviation from those professional standards may require us to terminate time early or perhaps adjourn the meeting until we maintain order within the meeting. Focus on constructive and creative feedback. Again, we have SiteWorks Studios here who will be taking notes. You may see some committee members up here writing as well, so we'll all be taking notes. We'll do our best to answer any direct questions as we go. There's some things that we may not have an answer to at the moment, but we'll write those down and we'll do our best to get answers back in some format. However, the committee is not obligated or necessarily encouraged to respond. This is primarily to collect feedback and information so that we can incorporate it into the revisions. I won't add any personal commentary or anything like that regarding the plan. Matt did a great job. Thank you to these guys for being here tonight and helping us work through this. And with that being said, we'll turn it over to public comment. The first person that signed up tonight is Kay Mason. Welcome.
Thanks to all of you. I think that everything is looking good. You guys too. I'm born in Swain County Hospital, and I grew up in Bryson City, and then I retired from teaching school in the school system here in Swain County. So I am a local gal, and I just want to say that I think it's wonderful that this is happening, and a lot of the plans look wonderful. And you answered several of my questions. The one it does leave me with might be a bit rhetorical, because I want to say why. When we live in the most beautiful place I can ever imagine, and we have a river running by, we have the mountains that are so lush and green, turn beautiful colors in the autumn, the snow falls in the winter, so it's year-round beauty. It's like an oasis in a crazy world. And we're inviting people to come into that and to share this beauty and this grace and the majesty of these mountains. We also have the backdrop of the beautiful courthouse that not only was built in a very stately manner, but was redone in a beautiful manner. So, that being said, I want to know why we would invite our guests to come to this wonderful place, and in the middle of our little oasis nestled in these mountains, and ask them to sit or relax on a slab of stone. So it's not a question as much as just, I guess, a commentary on my wanting everyone to think about, would you personally want your friends to come and not have places to sit that were more comfortable than that? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for that, Kate. Next up, we have Dean Kowal. Dean?
Dean.
Dean. Okay.
Just Dean.
Sorry.
Just plain old Dean. Pretty much everything Kay said, because Kay is my sister. Guess what? So, You know, we have 3 of the 4 sisters. We're all from here. And I'm impressed. I mean, there is a lot of work been done on it. The one corner that really stands out that I really like is I guess the C. Is that number 3 or C over here, the woodland? I like that one. I really like that one. But I am also, the seating is not inviting. I wouldn't want to sit out there. It's hot. Even if you put trees on it, it's still going to be uncomfortable seating. There's no backs for us old folks, you know. If you're wanting us old folks to come down or anyone, you know, we do have an aged population and visitors. And they're not going to be able, it's indestructible, yes. The cost, I would like to know what one of those items cost and the size, proportions. Are they all different sizes?
We might be able to answer that.
Yeah, they can come in different sizes, anywhere from a foot deep to 2 feet. We're proposing about 2 feet, 18 inches to 2 feet deep.
Okay.
Instead of about 18 inches high.
And how much would one of those weigh?
They're pretty heavy. About the weight of a car, probably.
Okay. So those are going to be placed by crane, I
Yes.
suppose?
Yeah.
The cost of placing those, not only the actual structure itself, but the cost of placing it, is it really going to be feasible? I know you said endurance. We're talking endurance here. The cost of those, you could probably get some more comfortable seating, even if they have to be replaced. Okay? You could have 10 benches in the same lifetime, you know. So I'm just saying that, you know, and in a few years, there may be something approaching that no one wants those stones out there. You know? I do also I like the rock work, walking on the concrete. It's too stark in front of the courthouse. I like the rock work. I like rock, brick. We have native stone here. We have a lot of beautiful places, and it is the outdoor, is it not, Capitol? So let's focus more on the outdoor. To me, it looks like a mausoleum. I'm just going to be honest. It looks like you're going into a cemetery. That's my opinion. Thanks for listening.
Great. Thank you, Dee. Just in time. Joe. Kathy Wiggins.
I come from a long line of people who lived and worked here in Swain County. I actually grew up in Asheville, but I've been here over 30-some years, so this is home. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. It was really good to see the flyby. I love the stonework and all the attention that's been put into the woodland area. I think stone walkway, brick walkway, those are softening features rather than all of the concrete that we're seeing, because that just feels, like it has been said, a little bit cold. I'm not totally opposed to some seating being the granite, but maybe not as much as we're seeing. Maybe even curved elements, because we've got those beautiful curved lines, and maybe filling, doing some curved elements. I think about when I was in college, and we had, you had just natural walkways, and next to them would usually be some kind of, little wall about say high and so wide, and usually with brick and stone. And we'd sit on the walls, but there would also be benches in front of those. So maybe incorporating smaller for the berm and putting benches in front of those. One of the things I was just thinking about today is other places have utilized brick walkways, again, when I was in college, and they had those bricks where people could put memorials on them. So I know that was a concern for using some of these materials is be able to put a memorial on them. And I know I've seen places where we've put them on benches, but also the walkway could be partially memorial, or it could be lined with brick. So using the stone, the brick, softening the concrete, maybe, keep as much green space as possible. This is still a little bit much for my eye, keeping the 2 pine trees, if they're stable, the large pine trees, and just keeping the feel of our town. But like I said, the native plantings, wonderful. Of course we would want that. So good lighting, and keep it not LED, something soft for the area, because, even in the evenings after dark, it will be used. So you definitely want to keep some good lighting on the area as well. So, but for me, different kinds of seating to allow, for me, it's like, oh, thank you.
Go ahead
And here's my
You wanna
list.
finish?
No, that's fine. I've got the list here. And one more thing that I am planning on doing is sending an email. I took all of the comments on the chamber page, and I put them in, and I'm going to send them in an email for people that couldn't be here.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you, Kathy. By the way, if any of the group wants to comment on anything that's said, just let me know. I'm looking around. Next, we have Ms. Snodgrass? Mr. Snodgrass, sorry.
It's usually Ms., but I think most people know I've been involved in marketing Swain County and Bryson City for many years, too many, and doing work for the Chamber of Commerce. We're heavily involved in corporate identity, brand identity, print advertising, the website, signage, publicity, that kind of thing. We are very sensitive to what people think about us. And you call it market research, whatever you want to do, but we need to know what people like about Bryson City and maybe some of the things they don't like so much about it. And part of what we pay attention to are the travel writers, the magazines that review Bryson City as a travel destination. And I just wrote down a lot of the characterizations that they use when they write about us. Laid back, southern charm, non-touristy, relaxing, easygoing, oozing with charm. Southern Living used more words. They said, Bryson City's main square has the antiquated charm, antiquated allure that we love. That kind of media exposure drives traffic. It's part of it. It creates our business. It's partially why we've been so successful. And you can argue that it probably is more valuable than paid advertising. I don't like to admit that, but it's true. So we kind of feel like that with all this granite and concrete, maybe with the exception of corner 3, that we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We're just replacing something that has a small town charm with something that looks like a corporate office park. And I don't like that. It's more egregious in corner 1, in front of the courthouse. It's just cold, and it just has none of that charm we're talking about. We're replacing the small town charm with, like I said, with a corporate office park environment. We're trading relaxation for cold stone benches that are not comfortable. And we're paving over the antiquated allure that Southern Living praised. We're also joined in the hip with the park, Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And, we advertise the park, the mountains, the natural setting. That's part of our appeal. We're losing it there. Maybe with the exception of corner 3, which I think is gorgeous. But the rest of it just doesn't work. We want I think what we need is less pavement, less paved walkways. I'm almost through, Eugene. Natural stone instead of concrete and granite.
Continue.
You know, like the pavement that's on corner 3. I mean, that, to me, that should be the starting point for all 4 corners. And we need to preserve, obviously, the greenery where we have it. Use natural materials, natural colors. Take our cue from the park and the atmosphere that the park has for us. Build on that and respect it and pay some attention to it. I had more, but that's enough. I think that says it. Okay.
You can continue if you like.
Well, I was going to make one more point. You look in marketing, you look at what your competition is doing. You got, we compare ourselves to Jackson, to all the other counties around us. And you're looking for something that sets you apart, something that gives you a competitive advantage. And we have that. We have that in our town center, our town square. Silva doesn't have a town center. Franklin doesn't have one. Neither does Waynesville, Maggie Valley, Cashiers, Highlands, even Cherokee. So our town square is a valuable asset that will serve us well. But we need to respect where we came from and build it on. We don't want to, it's not broken is what I'm trying to say. We don't need to reinvent it, which I think we're doing. We just need to respect our history, respect where we came from, and particularly build on the relationship we have with the park. So, that's it.
Thank you. All right, next up on the list, Kathleen Burns.
Sorry, I didn't have any questions or comments. I just signed up in case I had questions.
Okay, thank you. Karen Proctor.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having this evening. Thank you for your work. The plans are lovely. I agree with Charles, especially the woodland garden. I should start, and I hate following Charles because that was really good. But I should start by saying, this is just me. This is not the chamber. This isn't an official position. This is just Karen Proctor, okay? Grown up, lived here, all that. So just a couple of things. Woodland Garden, there's an existing Fremont Inn sign. Has there been a decision or any consideration given for the historic neon Fremont Inn sign there? There's also a plaque on a boulder for former Mayor Bruce Medford. It was placed there with the Japanese maple that is right beside this big, beautiful native white dogwood. They're gorgeous on that corner. So that kind of leads me into my next consideration. How will you handle existing thriving plants, trees, et cetera, like those? You know, if you were to go out and buy that Japanese maple, you're looking at a $20,000 tree. And you certainly don't want to just get rid of that. So I'm just hoping that, you know, things that are established and thriving, again, native, I don't know that those are naturally native, necessarily native, but certainly dogwoods are. Let's see, that's kind of all I had. Going back to Dean, and I love that, you know, the finance officer came out in her and she's like, how much is this, and that sort of thing. So the metal benches that are placed in town, the existing metal benches that are throughout town, those have been here like 15 years or so, and we're all about talking about longevity, that sort of thing. You can buy one for $1,195. You can buy a picnic table for $1,100, and those also come in ADA compliant. They've had one paint job since '06, so that's pretty durable. And as far as graffiti or things like that that you might be worried about, you can paint those just as easily as you could worry with granite, for that matter. certainly with, I know we have some restaurant owners, at least one here. I'm sure he would appreciate more picnic tables. I'm sure food trucks would appreciate more picnic tables. The more people that we can circulate through, keep them in our downtown, keep them happy, let them eat, hang out, that sort of thing. That's what we want to encourage. That's about everything. One thing I was a little concerned about
Go ahead.
would just be the hardscaping. With the significant rainfall that we recently had, there was a storm overflow. I'm not familiar with all the terms. You would have to talk to the town. But how would that increase in hardscaping? It's already a challenge for our town. I think there was something to do with you had to boil your water from Jackson Line to like west of Ingalls or something. How would that affect, again, their systems if we don't have more natural systems in place to absorb that sort of runoff? So I think that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have anything to respond
Sorry.
on those? Oh, I got one thing real quick, Karen. So the plaques and the plants, that was brought up at a prior meeting. We don't have an answer on that yet.
Okay.
But we are going to do the research to figure out all the, I think there's some trees down there that were mentioned possibly that has some dedication plaques on them as well. So we're
Yes.
going to research that and make sure they're handled appropriately. So we're
Awesome.
on that one. Good feedback.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, next up we've got Mike Shaker.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. I wrote a note to the board, or to you, Jeremiah, I think, a few weeks ago. And I think after hearing the presentation, I appreciate what you gentlemen do. One thing I heard, though, was a lot about the criteria that you have. And I think, and I hope we're adding, as you write, the rest of the criteria is what the community feels, what the community is about. I own the Everett Street Diner, and I speak with literally hundreds of people every single day. The overriding comments that I get is, there is just something different about this town. Mr. Snodgrass mentioned it. It's in the magazines and the articles that we get, but I hear it from the people that come into the diner every single day. They park their car and come into the diner and say, I haven't even talked to anybody, and it's just that feeling that you get when you come into Bryson City. This doesn't give us that feeling. I think there's, in my note, I just wanted to see if I can pull this up here real quick. In my note, there were 4 things I thought that this 4 corners should reflect. Relaxation. What do people come to the mountains for? They come for relaxation. So granite, stone, concrete doesn't relax me. Front porch, mountain, is just reminds you of a simpler time. Front porch, rocking chair, the things, those kinds of things. It was mentioned here a little earlier about stonework. Stonework is, you go through the mountains and that's the materials. It was either wood or it was stone. Maintenance, I understand about maintenance over the long term, but as brought up about the benches, TDA has a source of ongoing revenue. And what is that? I'm not sure what the maintenance or how the maintenance is going to be handled, who handles that, whether the county is going to be responsible or the TDA is responsible. But when you have an ongoing revenue, you build that into your initial costs, your initial reasons for doing what you're doing. So relaxations. Instead of concrete, granite, let's think about something that reminds us of front porch of a simpler time. Fishing. People are coming here in droves to go fishing. They want a little bit of that trout fishing. The Tuckasegee in this little 2-mile stretch, if I'm quoting somebody right, is the most stocked stretch of river in the country. And we have folks that are realizing that. So So focus maybe the four corners on the four 10As that people come to visit for. Fishing, hiking, trails, the park. Maybe something, something that brings the kids into the area. I don't know, a mountain motif, I don't know. Something that brings kids and makes kids want to join that area because we're very kid friendly. And then of course, water sports. Instead of getting rid of the fountain, plan for the maintenance of that fountain or plan for a water feature over the course of that time. Maybe, I don't know if, there's, in certain areas, there's those little spouts that come up and, kids can play in the spouts and things like that, and enjoy it, especially on the hot days. Anyway, I think those are some of my thoughts. I appreciate you letting me go a little bit longer. There was one other thing. Someone mentioned memorial stones. Excellent idea. Okay, I don't know many folks that were going to come down, sit on these concrete benches, but if you allow us to place memorial stones in bricks, they're going to come down because they're going to show their families, this is where the stone is. This is where your grandparents are remembered. This is where your mother is remembered, that sort of thing. I think all those kinds of elements. What you're hearing today is the extra criteria that you guys need. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Next on the list, we have Chris Roth.
I think all of my suggestions have already been covered by everybody else.
Okay, great. Thank you for coming. And Courtney Dills.
I think you've done a fantastic job. They look like sarcophagus, don't they? They do. Maybe we need a little less concrete. But what we really need is to remember the people that have built this town and the people that have been influential and put some historical things of that nature into the planning. You need to add something to give a nod to the people that made this place what it is now. That's all I have to say. That's what I'd like to see.
Great. Thank you.
Would that be?
Jim Nations.
Thank you, TDA members, and thank you, design team. My comments are a little bit different. I think there's wonderful continuity between the corners, and I love it. You look at this, and I see green. I look at this, and I don't see concrete. I see green. You move over to the memorial corner, and I love it. You know what it reminds me of? It's Site 93 in Pennsylvania. I've been there 3 times, and it just pulls me into that. And that's what a memorial is about. I hope we'll name it Veterans Park, and I hope we'll realize that it's not all about dollars in Bryson City. It's somewhat about people who serve our country, and they feel that with that memorial, the flag side of that corner, and I love the way it's laid out. Thank you. I hope we'll do this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right. So that is everyone that I had signed up for comment tonight. If there's anyone in the group that would like to be recognized to come up for public comment, then feel free to do so. Just please state your name so I can take your name
Good
down.
afternoon. My name's Joe Vasquez. They call me Gunner. I live up on Kirklands Creek Road. I'm a veteran, and my only concern is that why not highlight what it's intended for and what it's named after? If it's a Veterans Memorial Park, make sure we got the colors lit. You know, that's got to be a consideration. I like what I'm hearing from everybody here. Make it more natural and whatever. I'm proud of all you people for donating your time to do whatever, and I know it's not an easy thing. Sometimes you got to make a decision between this and that, but it's nice to see you moving forward on it. Stay motivated.
Thank you, Thanks, sir. Anyone else in the group?
My name is Keith Powell. I'm not to say I'm new to Bryson City, been coming here 40 years. When I started coming 7 years ago, I moved here. What I moved here for was these people. When I got here, they treated me like family. Got up on a Larka, got on the fire department. I found new brothers and sisters. Something I hadn't seen anywhere else. It's like I stepped back in time, you know. That's all great. Now, I'm all for whatever we do for the Memorial for Veterans, because I am a veteran. I'll do anything for them. But all of this other stuff, I'm not so sure about. That wouldn't have brought me to Bryson City. What brought me to Bryson City is what's here now. The family, the people. They treat you like family. You come here. They don't treat you like an outsider. 7 years, I feel like I belong here. My wife and I decided to come here. She just retired back in January. We built a new house up on the Larka. And so what I came here for was what was here already and the way we got treated. When we came here, we felt like we belonged here. And that's all fine and well, but that wouldn't have brought me to Bryson City. What brought me to Bryson City, what was already here, and the way the people treated me. We love it here, don't plan on going anywhere else. This will be where I die. And so, just want to thank you for what you've done. And I want to thank you for making this my home and treating me like family. I'm on the fire department, so I spent 8 hours this morning spraying water on the kids at West Swain, and I'm give out. But they were happy, they were laughing, and that's what we do. We bring a little small fire department that comes down and sprays water on kids at a little small school. Everybody knew everybody. It was family. They were smiling, they were laughing, and that's what we want to see, you know, with what we got going on in the world today at our school systems. That's what I like here, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I plan on staying. Thank you for all you've done, and thank you for making me family here in Bryson City. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the group?
My name is Jeremy Stamber. I'm born and raised here. Me and Jeremiah used to play basketball together. I was just taking a couple questions about the wood area that's in the back of where the waterfall is now, about it rotting and using composite boards possibly, and if it was sitting back to the side, it'd be more used as a sitting area. Somebody mentioned Fremont Inn sign, which was there, and I'm sure the Browns would like to keep that, obviously. I had a question for that. And then graffiti, somebody back here mentioned graffiti, that if it was to spray, which we do run into gangs here sometimes, on boulders that you can't move, you know, and you can't paint that, then that takes away the effect. I was just going to bring that in, bring that into an idea as well. So I just thought I'd let you.
Thanks, sir. Anything?
He was asking about if there's graffiti on that. How do you treat that? I'd give him an answer.
Typically on any kind of stonework or brickwork or masonry, if you don't have it painted already, then you have to do some kind of sandblasting to take that off. There are solvents that will take it off, and there are methods. I hate to say, we live in a city where it's rampant, and we see new graffiti every day, and people trying to clean it off. So it's always in our minds about public spaces and how that gets cleaned up. Hopefully here it's nowhere near as bad as what we experience every day, but it's an issue. So that's really a good point to bring up. It's a good consideration. About the woodwork, composite is absolutely a material that we would want to consider.
That's what I was thinking, and I figured you might want to move it back where it would be utilized more as sitting. Than it looked kind of like a walk-through wall sitting, and might not really get a good sitting there as far as that goes. I was also going to bring up the trees probably before a lot of these people was here. I know a lot of the old timers and people that was raised here, because I got 7 generations born and raised. There used to be 2 more big trees, like the ones that's on the other corner. I used to put lights on them. I kind of missed those in a way. Christmas time, I had them all 3 decked, I was going to say that's something that maybe we could look into putting back, at least 1 or 2, because they had to cut them down. One was right next to Fremont Inn, so I thought I'd mention that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Go ahead, Mike. Sure.
Just one more comment. That as the chairman of the United Gift Fund, we use corner B. I guess I don't know what the numbers are, but according to that sign B, we use it for signage during the fall. Public signs
got you.
I was born and raised in this county. I was born at home in my mother's bed. And I can remember, I believe it was beat, and I'm sure there's some here my age that can remember that little corner right there. There's a certain bench used to sit right in there. It's got another name. I won't repeat it. But you could go through on the weekend and you'd see every old gentleman in town sitting through there waiting for their wives to get done. Like I said, we had a different name then for that thing. Also, growing up, you come downtown, find you a place to sit, and you hear a preacher on that corner. All I ask is we try to bring some of that back. Give access to that to different people, different groups. The old man that wants to sit on the corner where the wife shop. Bring all that back. That's Bryson City. That's Swain County. That's heritage. We need our heritage built into that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Just for the record, can I get your name, please, just for the record?
Your name? Wallace Cole.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anyone else in the group have anything to add? All right, anybody from the board? Okay, I want to thank everyone again for,
I have one question.
Sure.
So they said they would go back, take everybody's comments, make some changes, and then it's gonna have, are you gonna have another meeting to present that, the final stuff, or?
yeah, well,
How are we gonna know what the final?
Mary Ann, you want to talk about the
Yeah,
logistics?
so, we haven't really spoken with the architect yet about that timeline. So as soon as we know that timeline, we'll post it.
Yeah, so the goal here is to collect all the feedback, revise the plan, make any revisions, recommendations, et cetera, and then present again the final findings of that. And then I think were we July or August with the Board of Commissioners to perhaps present a finalized plan on that ETA, that timeline. Mike?
Just one question. Can you explain the process when that's presented? How and a little ignorant about how the TDA coordinates with the county commissioners, owners of the land maybe, but how is that, how and who makes the final decision about the plan?
Yeah.
It's the Board of Commissioners, Board of County Commissioners.
Maybe something that might help would give everybody a little bit of a story why we done this project. We didn't take this on ourselves to just suddenly change town square. It wasn't like we was like, hey, let's change this up. And some of you guys that was on the beautification radio, maybe Chairman may know a little bit more about this than I do, but I believe that it was brought to us from the county manager that had came from one of our state representatives, I believe Mike Clampett. There was some grant money that was given for a project to do improvement. And Mike said, if you'll bring this here, do it, we'll give you the money for this. You guys have to match so much of this to it, but it's for improvements to town square. And that's where this thing came from. None of us sat here and said, we're gonna change town square, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of the stuff you guys are saying, I feel it too, I see it too, then I see the other part of it, it's like, all right, some of this is pretty cool. And some of it, we're all gonna have a different opinion. I mean, it was terribly misquoted by the paper recently about if they plant the flowers at the White House. All of us, if they polled us all, we'd have a different idea of what needed to be planted at the White House. But they don't ask everybody. They didn't ask Eugene or Miss Mason or anybody. They say, what are we planting here? They just did it. So that was, it was kind of brought to us. It wasn't something we took off and said, hey, we're just going to do this. So just so everybody knows, there was more factors at work here that has been put out there in front of everybody. And the way I found this stuff out, I'm even on the board and I asked questions. I was like, hey, where'd this come from? So, just if one of you guys want to elaborate on some of that stuff a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair.
It wasn't something we just decided to do.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, sir.
My name's Donna Cole, and
thank you for appreciating the elves and the scarecrows. I know Mary Ann loves putting out those elves every year. Anything else in the group? Board? Anyone? Board? Okay. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for coming. We appreciate the comments, like Eugene said. I mean, you're echoing a lot of the same feelings that we have. Most of the people on this board are lifelong residents of Swain County with lineage going way back as well. So we feel all those things, especially the historical context. And thank you for your stories regarding some of the older portions of the square. So thanks everyone for that, by showing up tonight. I mean, you truly show that you care about the county, and we're going to do everything we can to respect that on any of the revisions we do to the plan and any of this work that we do on these sacred corners for all the county residents. So we look forward to being able to roll out a revised plan and get that to you. Of course, Mary Ann's available, has her email address published. She'll be happy to get you in touch with any of the board members as well if you'd like to provide any additional comments electronically or in writing to her. It'll all be taken into consideration. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, for me, if I just have one more comment, I'm from Southern Vermont. I'm a Yankee, but I grew up in the same terrain, but 30 degrees colder, and then I went to do my 3 years in the Marine Corps and 20 years in the trees. But the beauty of the town squares up there, it's just a few trees and a lawn, and they have a little gate thing you can sit, a little orchestra guys can play. We ought to get into that. That's, if you want to draw people to that town square, then it's going to take a little bit of legwork on our part to support that, you know what I mean? I think all these ideas are good. Let's move forward. Just remember, make people responsible for showing what America is to, what our community is to everybody. I've been screaming that since I got here. I take care of my family, I take care of my community on Critical Street and Bryson City and Swain County. I'm doing the best I can. Everybody needs to do that. We all say, yeah, I gotta prune that tree. Well, we don't learn to prune. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just say stay motivated about our country. Don't worry about what's happening in the rest of the world. Take care of us here. Get all these people in, let them see how great it is, and then let them leave.
Thanks for the color.
You should leave this
So again, thank you for coming. We hope to see you again in the future and have you back in. We'll be public with whatever revisions and things that are done from this plan. So keep your eye on the paper and social media, et cetera, and we'll get these plans out. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
That's not locked out.